Okay, let me know. All right, great. Good morning and welcome to our adult Bible class. Where we're looking at David and Goliath. You probably can't see that on camera, but you can see there, not turtles. If my daughter were here, we'd talk about turtles, but we'll talk about David and Goliath instead. All right, and so we're gonna read through, and we'll pause a few spots to kind of dig into some of the details, because we heard it and it's familiar, but we sometimes seem to again miss some of what's really going on. So could someone read for us? And sorry, there's a few weird names in this first verse, but then it's mostly normal names.
I'll do it because of the name.
Okay.
Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and they were gathered at Succoth, which belongs to Judah, and encamped between Succoth and Azekah in Ephes-dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up a line of battle against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with the valley between them. And there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of his coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. And he had a bronze armor on his legs, and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and the spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. And his shield bearer went before him, and he stood and shouted at the ranks of Israel, "Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourself and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be servants and serve us." The Philistine said, "I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together." When Saul and Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were greatly dismayed and afraid.
All right. So, brief review. If you watch Pastor Mark's pre-recorded Bible study from last week, he talks a lot about the Philistines and their origins because we're talking about Samson. So there's in President Samson, President David. So they're around for a few hundred years, but generally they're thought to be kind of among these sea peoples that seem to come and just kind of devastated the Mediterranean Sea area between 1200 BC. I know I saw a book that said 1177 BC, the destruction of civilization, that kind of thing. And so they're probably again more sea peoples from Greece here, and then kind of land along the coast here and take up possession there. And then during David and Solomon's reign, they still remain independent, but they're pretty beaten back and you can see there's 5 cities, one of which we hear a lot about now, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and a couple others. All right, again, the area contained the 5 cities, the Pentapolis, 5 cities in Greek, the Philistine Confederacy, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron, known as Philistia, or the land of the Philistines, and that's from the word for Philistine as it goes through things. That's how we get Palestine, as a name for the area. All right. And note that both that Gaza and Ashkelon and Ashdod are still cities. If you're paying attention to any of the Israeli-Hamas conflict, those will still be mentioned there. They think they found out where Gath was. There's still some debate among archaeologists about that, but the other ones are mainly there. All right, and so the battle that's happening here is the Valley of Elah is kind of, again, midway between the Philistine cities over here and where the Israelites are controlling over here. And this is sort of what it would look like, and you'd kind of see Saul's camp here, Philistine camp here, and then the valley in the middle where they're. And so both armies have the high ground, with the idea that then you either fight and meet in the middle, or since you control the high ground, then the other army has to run up to you. And both seem pretty entrenched, which is part of why then they want to do this single combat thing to solve things. All right, any questions, comments, thoughts? Yeah?
How tall was he really in feet and inches?
Well, we'll get there, yep.
And how heavy was the spear that was X number of shekels?
Yep, we'll get there.
Okay.
So, no, good thought. All right. And then one of the issues, though, in dealing with the Philistines is that they're stronger and more militarily prepared than the Israelites. Why? Because a couple chapters earlier, we're told that there's no blacksmith to be found in all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make themselves swords or spears. And so the Philistines can work iron, and the Israelites can't. And so that, in fact, later on it talks about how the Israelites take their swords and spears and plowshares and sickles and things to the Philistines to get them sharpened or repaired, and how much they're charged for that. So of course this is going to be a challenge as they're in conflict, because another way that the Israelites are overmatched. In fact, it's mentioned a couple times, because that's earlier on when Saul and Jonathan are fighting the Philistines, and Saul and Jonathan have swords, and everyone else seems to just have spears, because it takes more metal to make a sword than it does to make a spear tip. These are some examples of some of the swords that the Philistines would have used. All right, so again, David versus Goliath. A few different things. Yeah, measurements are approximate here. This one's a little better. So average American male, 5 foot 10 inches. Average NBA player, 6 feet 6 inches. That might be a little taller now. And Goliath is supposed to be about a little over 9 feet, which isn't necessarily out of the question. You might remember this guy, Andre the Giant. So 7 foot 4 inches. Some other wrestlers have been that big or bigger, with the giganticism. So and usually there's some sort of tumor on the pituitary gland that makes them grow a lot, but then they tend to die early because their bodies get too big and their hearts can't pump all the way. They deal with some other health issues too. So they're big and intimidating looking, but they're weaker than they necessarily look sometimes. And again, he's about 9 feet if we go by the 6 cubits. And actually the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, has it shorter, so he's only more in the 6 foot range. But still would have been taller than everyone else. But his armor weighed about 125 pounds, and the spearhead weighs about 15 pounds just by itself. So again, you'd have to be pretty strong to wear these things and throw these things and use his sword and things. So, all right, good. All right, now. Again, so Goliath is trying to do this single combat. He's the champion. He's the tallest. He's the biggest person on the Philistine side, and he's supposed to fight an Israelite. Now, who should be going up to fight for Israel? Their biggest. And who are we told earlier in 1 Samuel is tall? Saul, right? When he's picked as king. So there's a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, son of Zerah, son of Bekorah, son of Aphiah, a Benjaminite, a man of wealth. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. From his shoulders upward, he was taller than any of the people. So Saul, as king, Saul's about a head taller than the rest of the Israelites. And so Saul's king, Saul's tall, he's the one who should probably be going to fight Goliath. In fact, this is part of why the Israelites wanted a king. Do you remember? Because they had the judges, and then finally after after a bit, especially as they're oppressed by the Philistines, they cry out to God for a king. And God says, well, I'm your king. Are you rejecting me? They say, no, we want a king who can go and fight our battles for us. And Samuel tells the people, well, no, if you get a king, he's not going to fight your battles for you. He's going to conscript your sons, and so have them as soldiers. He's going to take your daughters, and they'll be his servants in the palace. He's going to take part of your grain, take all this stuff in taxes. Are you sure you want a king? And they go, yes, sure. Everyone else has a king. We need one too, because he's going to fight our battles for us. And God says, okay, fine. Well, you've asked for it, you get it. And so they pick this guy named Saul, who starts out okay. But again, we're told he's as much as he'll make it later. So he's from a family of wealth. He's handsome, that gets mentioned several times, and he's tall, which is, again, probably what you're looking for when you're expecting a king. And he does okay, and his height actually gets him in trouble a couple times when he's trying to hide, and people can see him because he's too tall. He has trouble hiding when people are trying to get him to do things. But all right, so again, single combat, one-on-one. And so Goliath's tall champion, he should be doing it, so he's doing it. Saul should be the one, but Saul and all the rest of the army is afraid. All right, any other questions, thoughts, comments thus far?
I've heard Jewish folklore, legend, whatever, that the reason David took 5 stones is because he knew Goliath had 4 brothers.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
some Jewish folklore.
I could be, yeah.
That's how good they thought they were.
Yeah, when we get to the end, yeah. So David picks 5 smooth stones from the riverbed to use in his sling. There's all sorts of different interpretations over why 5. Yeah, whether Goliath has 4 brothers, whether it represents the virtues you should have so that you can face the Goliath in your life. Different things like that, or he just wanted to make sure he had enough in case he missed and got more chances.
Usually bad at 200.
Right, yeah.
That was for Don.
Okay. Right. All right, so now we get into this interlude section that wasn't in what we heard on Sunday, but kind of explains a little more about why David's there and what's going on with him. Could someone explain, or someone volunteer to read? And it's a big chunk, so we can probably switch off a few times as we go through this.
I'll start.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Now David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah named Jesse, who had 8 sons.
Oh, pause. Also, chapter 16 is when, and I think that might be later on, but chapter 16, 1 Samuel 16 is when David's anointed to be the future king. And he's the youngest, the one that's forgotten by his father. Samuel gets told to go have a feast with Jesse and his sons. And Jesse brings out all his sons. Samuel looks at the older brothers who are strong, tall, handsome, and he goes, oh, it's got to be one of these guys. And David says, no, I look in the heart. Or God says, I look in the heart, not at the outward appearance. And they get through the 6 sons. Samuel asks Jesse, is this everyone? And Jesse goes, oh, wait, forgot about the kid that's out with the sheep, the youngest one. So go get him. And so we see some in this passage too, some of that sibling rivalry going on here too. All right, so he has 8 sons.
In the days of Saul, the man was already old and advanced in years. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons who went into the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 eldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistine came forward and took his stand, morning and evening. And Jesse said to David his son, Take for your brothers an ephah of this parched grain, and these 10 loaves, and carry them quickly to the camp to your brothers. Also take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their 1,000. See if your brothers are well, and bring some token from them. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper, and took the provisions and went as Jesse had commanded him. Next up.
Then he came to the encampment as the host was going out to the battle, shouting the war cry. And Israel and the Philistines drew up battle, army against army. And David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage and ran to the ranks and went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, behold, the champion of the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, came up out of the ranks of the Philistines and spoke the same words as before. And David heard it. All the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were much afraid. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches, and will give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel. And David said to the men who stood by him, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him in the same way, so shall it be done to the man who kills him. Now Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, why have you come down? And with whom have you left these few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle.
That's an older brother talking to a younger brother, right? Why are you here? You shouldn't be here. This is for the big people. Go back to the sheep.
Somebody else can read.
And David said, what have I done now? Was it not but a word? And he turned away from him toward another and spoke in the same way, and the people answered him again as before. When the words that David spoke were heard, they repeated them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father, and when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you.
All right, why don't we pause? We'll pause there. Any thoughts, questions, comments, reactions to what's going on so far?
So
Yeah.
Did he have any vision that he could do this, or is just his faith, not just, but it was his faith that just,
I mean, I think, if we were looking at it in other ways, there's that overconfidence of youth that come, as the older brothers are all, they've been trained for war. They look and see what they expect. They go, well, I can't fight him one-on-one, because he's got a bigger sword and spear and stuff, so I'm not getting anywhere near him. But David just sees him as a threat, sees him as someone that needs to be defeated, and trusts that God's with him and trusts that he knows what he's going to do. All right. Any other thoughts?
It's interesting David is kind of always saying, this person is going against the Lord.
Yeah.
The army of the Lord.
Right.
I mean, he seems to be more focused on God in what he responds than
Yeah.
we're kind of seeing from
Right, yeah, everyone else is like, well, I have to fight this guy. David's saying, yeah, well, no, he's defying God. God's going to fight him. God can use me can work through me to do this. So that's how we'll go about it. Yeah. That's definitely that change in perspective, I think, helps a lot.
And he had been successful.
Right. David talks about, well, I've fought lions and bears, so I can fight this giant. Yeah, that's a definite thing. Again, comparing to taking what he'd done in the past, applying it to what he was faced with here.
That is a decent resume.
Right. Yeah.
No matter,
somebody against Goliath couldn't move as fast as a lion or a bear.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Goliath is definitely not as fast as a lion or a bear. In fact, I didn't mention it earlier, but one of the ideas of if Goliath was 9 feet tall, because of the giganticism, the thing on his pituitary gland, that often seems to have maybe trouble seeing. That's why he has a shield bearer with him to help him lead out. And later, when he talks about why do you come at me with sticks? Well, David would have just had a stick, so maybe he's seeing double. Which doesn't matter if you're swinging a big sword that can cleave through anything. It does matter if you're trying to hit someone quick, smaller and quicker. But yeah, good. All right.
The thing is, what do we know about David's devotional life, even at this point? What was he doing while he tended the sheep? Devotional. What's he known for?
Playing his harp.
And what would he do with his harp?
Writing songs. Like songs.
Yeah.
Right.
What were the nature of the songs?
And-
Yeah. So he had a strong devotional life because he spent a lot of time praying and reflecting on his God.
By himself.
Yeah. So he's really in tune with God. He's really thinking about this in relationship with God rather than just the situation itself.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, all that time out with the sheep not only gave him time to practice the sling throwing, but also gave him time to reflect and pray to God and trust in God's protection and deliverance over him while he was there. Again, he's playing harp at this time. Also in chapter 16, not only is David anointed, but then we get the first mention of then David's brought in to play his harp for Saul to calm him as he's tormented by an evil spirit. And so David's got the harp stuff going already and reflecting on that, and then we'll see that continue through his life too. All right, let's go on and see again how other people are seeing the battle versus how David's seeing the battle. Could someone read this?
Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a helmet of bronze on his head and clothed him with a coat of mail. And David strapped his sword over his armor. And he tried in vain to go, for he had not tested them. Then David said to Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them. So David put them off. Then he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. And the Philistine moved forward and came near to David with his shield bearer in front of him. And when the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance. And the Philistine said to David, Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the field. Then David said to the Philistine, You come to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. When the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. There was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine and took his sword and drew it out of his sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and Judah rose with a shout and pursued the Philistines as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron, so that the wounded Philistines fell on the way with Sharon as far as Gath and Ekron. And the people of Israel came back from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their camp. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent.
All right. So again, the battle's won. David comes at him not with anything else, well, not on his terms, but with God and with the sling, and kills Goliath. Right. Any thoughts, reactions?
I've always wondered where the shield bearer went. He's standing there.
Right. Yeah.
Almost in the way it sounds.
Yeah. Does Goliath fall on him, and then so he's out already, just too shell shocked to stop David from running over there, then pulling out Goliath's sword and cutting the head off, and
Often these assistants were slaves too. And you cut off the head, and they're totally disoriented.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Smooth stones supposed to be better for some reason?
That's a good question. I think they would fly truer. Aerodynamics.
Yes, that makes sense.
I want to throw a curveball.
Right.
This is fastball time.
Yeah. Fastball time. Yeah.
This isn't slow pitch.
No.
That's right.
You want Colfax, not Cuellar.
Right.
One of the names, one of the meanings of the name Gary is spear carrier.
Oh, yeah.
And I would have been running. I dropped all the rest of them, and
Yeah. Well, usual happen. Once you cut off the head, then the Philistines are just shocked. Their champion's lost, and then they see the Israelites, who are now emboldened, running down the hill, running at them, and then they get the heck out of Dodge and run as fast as they can back, but leave a lot behind and trip and fall and get caught and captured and killed that way. Yeah.
Carrying the guy's head, I've always, was that necessary? That, he carried his head all the way back to Jerusalem.
Gotta prove he's dead. Yeah.
Oh, look out!
Was that symbolic of that era?
Yeah.
I mean, assume they're doing it. He's not doing it to be gruesome. He's doing it because that's what.
Yeah.
It's part of the process or something.
Right, to prove he's dead, take the stuff you captured back to your capital. Well, earlier, when the Philistines capture the Ark of the Covenant, and they bring it back to their capital. But then all sorts of bad things happen, so then eventually they give it back. Never mind, we don't want to deal with this.
What happens to Saul when he's killed?
Yeah. Yeah, later on.
The head, show that shows.
Yeah, later on, when the Philistines kill Saul, Saul kills himself, but they find his body.
And you remember seeing Braveheart, right? Mel Gibson, Braveheart.
Yeah.
And what does he do when he defeats the one general? He sends the head to the King of England. You know, that's how they did it. It was gruesome, but it was intimidating.
Dean, you had a question?
Well, I think you just answered it.
Okay.
I assume you was taking the head back to prove that
Yeah.
you really did.
Prove that Goliath's dead as kind of a source of,
Is it significant that he took his armor back to his tent?
I mean, I think that the armor then was, so David apparently didn't give back the armor, but kept it as kind of the part of what he was to get because he defeated Goliath.
So that's his souvenir?
Yeah, kind of. So, I mean, it'll get some other stuff later on too. What else? Yeah. All right. Yeah, so again, Lord saves not with sword or spear, battle is the Lord's, he'll give you into your hand. So there's obviously a bunch of artistic depictions of this. And then, oop, did I see that? Okay. All right. All right, and then after this, David's held in high regard, kind of becomes part of Saul's court. Saul gives him, like he promised, says he's going to get one daughter, and then passes her off to someone else, and then gives the daughter that loves David to him. But this is also part of when Saul's lost his kind of divine right, divine mandate, the favor of God as being king, and so he starts getting all sorts of paranoid and jealous because David's doing all this stuff that everyone likes, and Saul hasn't. When the people start cheering, what is it? Saul's killed his hundreds, David's killed his thousands. Saul, starts looking at that not favorably, and tries to get David killed in a few different ways and things. But all right. Any other thoughts, questions?
How long between the time he kills the time he kills Goliath? How many years pass before he actually becomes king?
Oh, that's a good question. I forgot to try and look. It's a decent chunk because Saul still remains king and chases David around for a fair amount of time. I don't remember exactly how long, but yeah. So, and I mean, David's still described as a youth here. Probably not shepherd boy youth necessarily, because when he gets, after this, if he gets put in command of military units, that's kind of at least mid-late teenager and things, and so some of that's going on.
I don't need to know who it was, but who was the little girl that was totally unafraid this morning?
No, that was a little boy. That was Edwin.
Oh, the little one. Who was
Yeah, Edwin. Shoot.
I'm never afraid.
Yeah. Nope. I'm never afraid. Yeah. Little Edwin Sheridan. The bravery of a 3-year-old. Yeah. I'm never afraid. Okay. So.
7 years from now, you have to tell him the same thing.
Right. Yeah. All the joys of how kids react in children's sermons and what they can get reminded of. The kids say the darndest things. So. But yeah, so again, David then, this is kind of that first step, or first big thing that leads to David becoming king, because God's looked at David's heart, knows that again, all that the devotional life of and trust in God he's gained by being the forgotten youngest son out with the sheep will serve him well throughout his life, and even as he goes through times and stumbles a fair amount, he still trusts in God and repents and remains faithful. So, all right, any final thoughts, questions, comments? All right. And we'll get done a little early, but that's okay. We started a little early too. Next week will be Naaman, the Syrian general, and his leprosy and washing in the river. So we'll see you then. Thank you.
Very much. He swings that thing around and knocks that target. For real, or you're just kind of playing with us? We got good at it.